By the way, that shit's crazy that they're like this is like a known thing that's supposed to happen. Like the Ukrainian spring counteroffensive is coming, and they just like they're bringing it out like it's the new season. You know what I mean? So let's watch what Sky News is saying about the Ukraine war.
And there's two versions of them. I've seen both versions. And they're a daily briefing document, or allegedly a daily briefing document, from the 1st of March, day 370 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation. Today is day 408, so just over a month old.
Right, so what have we learned? So you say there are two documents here.
There are two versions of it, and what they are updates on the...
Yeah, the leak also... the leak showed that it was definitely not the U.S. that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Like, I'm kidding. They didn't say that, but it would be pretty funny if that was also featured in it. It would at least give us more... It would certainly give us a better clue on, who's responsible for this leak or who stands to gain the most from this leak if it featured some shit like that.
Flow of Western equipment into the Ukrainian forces, a restructuring of the Ukrainian forces, an assessment of what's going on the ground, an assessment of the weather and the conditions for potential counterattacks, and a number of other things. One of the areas that there has clearly been changes in is an assessment of the casualties. And one document assesses Russian casualties to be at a certain level. There's another document that has almost certainly been doctored that has Russian casualties down as low as 17,500 dead. Now, to put that into context, UK Defence Intelligence a couple of weeks ago assessed Russian dead as between 40 and 60,000. The Ukrainians themselves assessed Russian dead as over 170,000 so far.
Okay, well, I don't know who's right, but those numbers are fucking crazy. It's like, yeah, Russians, that's insane. 1 million. Hasan Piker has said that 1 million Russians have died so far in the war. Somewhere in that range, 1 to 1 million. We'll never know. According to Reddit, it's like 500K now. Yeah, okay, soy. Reddit's like, what do you mean? I watch kamikaze drone combat videos in the trenches every day, and I can count on multiple hands exactly how many people have died. Anytime someone dies in Ukraine, whether it be a Ukrainian soldier or a Russian one, I've watched it. At first it was weird. Now I watch it with only one hand. The other hand decides to do what it wants to do. I have no control over my bodily functions. Oh, I just want more blood.
The original document that's in there had a figure that was closer to what the UK was talking about. But we have to be wary of disinformation at the moment. Going back to the Second World War, disinformation, Operation Mincemeat, there are most secret documents that were released by the Allies in a way that they knew that they would get to Hitler's desk. They did, and that convinced Hitler that the Allies were going to attack in through the Pas de Calais, not through Normandy. We've got the Ukrainian spring counteroffensive coming up, and it would be important to get documents out there.
By the way, that shit's crazy that they're like this is like a known thing that's supposed to happen. Like the Ukrainian spring counteroffensive is coming, and they just like they're bringing it out like it's the new season. You know what I mean? Like, it is so wild. Imagine announcing a counteroffensive. Yeah, well, the reason why they're announcing it is because like you can't do it in the fucking winter. You know what I mean? That's the point. It's like expected, but it is still weird that they're like talking about it like it's a fucking battle pass. You know what I mean? Make sure to get your battle pass, Redditors. The Ukrainian spring counteroffensive, it's on its way. Season 2 is going to have wonderful new arcs. Possibly speculation on whether or not there will be F-16s eventually. They're saying that that's probably a Season 3 DLC by Ukraine.
Either from the Ukrainians trying to suggest something different to the Russians, or from the Russians trying to undermine what the Ukrainians are doing.
Yeah, can we have a look at the conflict as things stand at the moment? Is that going to have a lot of bearing on this spring offensive then?
It will have a bit of a bearing on it. There are two things that are important to the spring offensive. One is the timing of it. And this document, if accurate, will give the Russians a better understanding as when the Ukrainians have the right number of troops in, the right number of new pieces of Western equipment in, and when they'll be properly trained in it. And as I said, there's an assessment on the ground, because if the ground is hard enough for armoured manoeuvre, that is quite important. And what it doesn't do, though, is the other bit, which is say where the attacks should go in. And that is still the gift of the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians at the moment are successfully fixing the Russians and everyone's attention in Bakhmut.
Yeah, well, what's happening there specifically?
And in Bakhmut, the Russians have made a little bit of progress. They've crossed to the western side of the Bakhmut River and are putting more pressure on the centre of the town. But the Ukrainians are still holding on. We predicted that would fall quite a while ago. The Ukrainians could, if they believe that the Russians are weak enough in there, carry out one of their first counterattacks in through Bakhmut and fracture that attention that's there. Everything seems to be focused on it. We've got a 1,200-kilometre front line. The other place the Ukrainians could attack into is the Savatoni-Crimea Gap. That's an important line of communication. Take another bite of territory back in the same way that they did with Kharkiv earlier last year. Another area where there's a lot of activity going on at the moment is in Advika, just to the north of Donetsk. And the Russian regular military are fighting in there, but have had some significant losses. And if the Ukrainians felt very brave, and I don't think this would be what they'll do in their first part of the counteroffensive, but if they wanted to really fracture the Russian defences, they could come down from the Zaporizhia region down south to the coastline around Mariupol or Melitopol, in that sort of area, breaking that land bridge between Crimea and the disputed Donbass, which is all important to the Russians.
Escalating violence in the Middle East. Over.
Can you explain this in valid terms, please? No. Yeah, I don't fucking know. Mick Mulroy, a former senior Pentagon official, said the leak of the classified documents represented a significant breach in security that could hinder Ukrainian military planning. As many of these were pictures of documents, it appears that this was a deliberate leak done by someone that wished to damage the Ukraine, U.S., and NATO efforts. One analyst described what has emerged so far as the tip of the iceberg. Early Friday, senior national security officials dealing with the initial leak, which was first reported by New York Times, said a new worry has arisen. Was that information the only intelligence that was leaked? By Friday afternoon, they had their answer. Even as officials of the Pentagon and National Security Agency were investigating the source documents, they were all over 4chan and Telegram and Twitter. The 4chan document is a map that purports to show, can't say that, the status of the war in eastern Ukraine city of Bakhmut, the scene of a fierce and months-long battle. Can't believe they leaked it on fucking 4chan. I'm losing my goddamn mind, dude. It's like purports